Welcome to The Purple Door, a podcast for young women by young women, with your host, Shanique Lowndes. Each week, we deliver the best hard-hitting analysis of topical issues that affect young women and how they deal with them. Today, we bring you part 2 of our discussion. Thanks for tuning in. Roxanne, I hear you, and it's a good way to approach the idea as it relates to allowing the sex drives to, complement each other. But there are situations where people are married and sex gets ugly in their marriage because the libidos are misaligned, and then you find people starting to exercise deviant sexual behavior. So one partner might end up going outside of the marriage, and then, that is going to cause a lot of emotional scarring. Maybe the person who is the victim of the infidelity may shut down sexually on that partner, and it just ripples out into a whole ugly episode. There's also the fact that some people turn to pornography and other things like those, and we have to remember that while sex is very pervasive in the society, there are a lot of ways that Satan has corrupted it, and those corrupted ways can even invade marriages and cause sex to be an ugly experience for even married people. So things like pornography and going to strip clubs, and the latest one now is introducing other people, and some people think that because I am married, me and my husband, we can do anything now, so we can invite Roxanne to join us in the sexual act, and so on. So we have to keep in view at all times, because sex is one of those things that Satan really has done some work with.
And I think that is why the counsel is given in Adventist home, that we are to ensure that we don't develop animal passions. The dogs are dogs. Okay, that is why they behave like dogs. I ain't no dog. When I say no dog, I'm referring to your attitude, this aggression. You are right in saying all of what you've said, that there has to just be this proper focus. Yes, you are an individual, I am an individual, but there is God's ideal.
Yes.
There is God's ideal.
Just to add to that, because while Kim spoke about that, I thought about God's word in 1 Corinthians 6 verse 20. It says, "For you are not your own, for you are bought with a price. So glorify God in your body."
Yes.
The sexual act has to be glorification to God.
Yes.
And so if you have taken on this animal passion almost that you can't even see, it's almost like you're just blind with this lust and this need to have sex, and just, as the song say, in the.
Oh,
you're just
God.
aggressive in your sexual activities. God is saying, hold up. That's not what I've asked you to do. I'm asking you to glorify me in your physical, sexual, emotional act.
Yes.
That's what I want you to do. And that's where we need to get our young people focusing. That it's not just, let's go at this as the dancehall artists put it and the rest of the world puts it, but it's really glorifying God.
Even within the context of just being faithful to each other, that sort of control is necessary.
Very necessary.
And to add to that, I learned at a family program some time back, was held at my church. They were speaking about sex one evening, and they specifically spoke on the issue that when we have sex outside of marriage, we are actually invoking demons to help us have sex, because sex is actually an holy thing. So when we have sex, when we're married, angels come down and help us. So I guess that's why we actually go off to heaven, right?
I see the married people laughing, and I know that's a very knowing laugh, because I've been hearing this angel story for a long time. But my mother taught me as a teenager growing up that sex is an act of worship. And I really like what Sherlan said about the importance of making sure that even in the context of our marriage, that we're glorifying God. And if as partners, and this is the thing, we are partners. And if we're playing on the same team, and we're playing the same game with the same rules, it means that we have to take care of each other. So it can't be that one person's demands are so great that the other person always feels like they're catching up or they're always being asked to do this thing against their will. It really demands a great deal of communication, a great deal of patience and compassion. Because let's talk about a real scenario. The ideal is for two virgins to come together. But what happens when a young man who has been out there, probably was not a Christian at the time, settles down in church, God blesses him with a good, nice virgin?
In a situation like that, I think the first step would be that the young man needs to make it clear to the young lady what his expectations are, and the same would be expected from the young lady. And you said it earlier on in the discussion. You have to talk, like literally. You need to speak. There is no other way for you to understand or meet that expectation unless communication takes place. It is at that point in time that you will say, well, I don't really understand what you're asking me. I don't think so. That's not how I was grown. That's not how I see it. I would not be comfortable doing something like that. Or I would learn. I'm okay with that. Or you can make your own suggestions. What if we didn't do that, but we did this? Or let us come up with our own. We're going to start at a place where what you know, we're not going to do that. What I know, we're not going to do that. We're going to work from this point onwards. But the first thing that needs to happen is communication. You have to talk. You have to tell me what is in your head. And you have to do it in a way that you don't feel that you're being judged. Roxanne said it earlier in terms of her own growing up. What it is that you felt that you could say without feeling like, oh dear, you mentioned that. Oh, hold it now. Be careful what you're saying. Those feelings, they are real. They come on you. You need to be, I feel this way. I feel this way when you talk to me or when you hold my hand. This is how I feel.
Yeah. Especially those of us who are not married yet, to know that it is okay to say to someone that you're dating seriously, this is how I feel. Because I remember in a conversation some time ago, we were talking about how relationships can get intense. And after a while, you need to get married or you might need to space out. And I remember Sherilyn saying that after a while she couldn't even hold her husband's hand. Right. Because they weren't married yet and they knew they weren't getting married yet. But things had built up to a level that, they had to put guards up now because, the physicality was getting to that level. And we have to get our young people to understand that developing sexual feelings for somebody that you're dating is natural. It's normal. If you are dating somebody seriously and marriage is in your head and you're not feeling that way, run or fix it because it's not going to work. But bigger than that though, I want to touch on how sometimes the distortions that society has created with sex damages their sexual relationship in a marriage. We know that Hollywood has taken sex to a different level. We know that the dancehall scene has done its own damage. The hip-hop scene as well. There are strip clubs all over the place. There are dirty magazines everywhere. And sometimes our men and our women get caught up in this very glamorous idea of sex, and because they don't necessarily see Hollywood being replicated in their marital bedroom, they feel dissatisfied. How do we deal with things like that?
You touched on it, and I also mentioned it. I think a big one for us locally, taking it right here in Jamaica, dance hall makes it seem as though every lady needs to know how to twerk. I don't know how to twerk.
Or the point is, or to whine a particular way.
Or whine a certain way, or move your body a certain way. And so that act has to be done. And so a lot of men expect that when I get married, my wife needs to be, she needs to be a freak in the bed, a lady in public. And that's what they want, and they're looking for that. And you have kept yourself put together. You never go no party and wind up on nobody before. You never a clue how to do that. You grow up properly in church. And then there is that expectation. My suggestion as to what to do is, one, as Kimberly mentioned, be open.
Yes, you have to
talk to each other. I don't know how to do that. Is that you expect? Because if we are being practical, a lot of our men...
And learn how to twerk if that is what you want.
And learn how to. And there is nothing wrong with that. Learn how to do that. But not only that. Be straightforward with your partner to be. a lot of our men, for example, they went to all boys school and it's a lot of certain kind of conversations for years, whether or not they wanted to be a part of these conversations, they were hearing it. And so they have this expectation. Be open, talk to each other, just be straightforward. I don't know how to do this, or I think maybe I can try this, or maybe you should show me how you do that, and then we try. It has to be, and that's why God knew what he was doing when he wanted two pure people to come together, to be honest. Because when you come together and the two are no clueless and they make a little mistake and they try and they laugh over the foolishness you want to do. But you grow together. You grow together, that in time you're so good at certain things, you frighten yourself.
Oh, no, you mean you frighten yourself into heaven.
Yes.
But I want to touch on something else that you said. You said two pure individuals, and I want us to understand that the purity is not just physical.
No.
Because some of our young people, unfortunately, while they haven't engaged in the act, their minds are so clouded with their exposure to pornography and the music that they've been listening to and the conversations they've been having, that they really have messed up God's image of what sex is supposed to be. And so they do, yes, they're virgins, but they go into a marriage expecting that this person that they're going to marry is going to reach to this level. And then you find that the problem creeps up on them. So it's been 2-3 years now, and my wife don't twerk yet, and I'm starting to wonder if she's normal. And then all of a sudden I know that this girl can do it, and I'm wondering if I should try it out with her. And sexual purity is not just on a physical level. It's also on a mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And we have to teach our young women, our young people, how to guard the avenues to their soul, to make sure that when you go into your marriage and you open those gates, you don't have anything holding your back. You don't have anything distorting that heavenly experience you're supposed to have with your partner.
You're now married, right? Meaning you had sex and all of that. How much should you allow yourself to be exposed? Meaning, like, what sort of knowledge would you want? How will you seek to know more? Alright, and what is the approach that you would take just to ensure that that balance remains? That assess your spouse in your head, him not do that. I wonder if you understand what I'm saying? What it is that you will take or not take? What should your approach be?
And very good question, Kimberly. I was actually just coming to that because early on in my marriage, I realized that that was something to guard against. Right. You know, nothing is wrong with trying to inform your sexual life. But the question comes, where do we get this information from? You know, there are healthy marriage seminars that you go to, you know, that you get, and there are also healthy books that are written to inform you to improve your sexual life without breaking down privacy barriers. And one of the things my husband pointed out to me earlier, even as being a pastor, is that sometimes you engage in conversations and people are talking about their bedroom lifestyle, not knowing that it's their opportunity to find out yours. And so you're at work and you have a very good girlfriend, and she sees your husband and you don't know that she's attracted to your husband. And the first thing they do is to try to give you the impression that the way he comes off to them is as if he's not all that in the bedroom. And that's her problem, not yours. And it's not your position to inform her or to share.
Exactly.
Or to prove what she has in her mind wrong. Right? Because that's their way of getting to know you. Right? And even if you feel as if you're not fulfilled either, that's not workplace, girl talk, that's not the place to put down your guard, because you're opening the door for somebody else to come in. And if your husband says to you that they are not impressed or they want more, it's for you both to come together and work together, because it's a problem between you. As Ella Gordon said, one person can't have sex by themselves.
Exactly.
You understand? So it's a matter of communication. What works, what is not working, right? And how do we go about fixing this? But the devil is very subtle. Because he puts on these things that is done with camera tricks. I mean, a lot, about 5 settings he put into one.
and it's several moves.
And
Them have to
several
practice it
moves.
so many
And
times till
nothing
it
is
gets-
wrong
Yeah.
being married in taking a decision that you're going to guard against these things.
Yeah.
You know, nothing is wrong with saying that this is not going to come into our home. Right? Nothing is wrong with saying that we're not going to be listening to these music about man must be like a dog and this and that. Because I'm telling you, when I'm driving home and I hear it, I'm like, what's that? You know, and you want to go and find out. And especially, there are men nowadays who, you're in the market everywhere, they advertise themselves, you know. You know, boy, if me come home with you, what can happen and that. And
All
they try
the
to give you
time.
the impression like
Somehow
there is
it
something
cannot.
more out there other than.
What you're getting.
All of those are demonic seducing spirits.
Yes.
And the best thing you can do with them is don't find out. The best thing you can do
Get
with those
me
pop-ups, don't go there.
Hence,
Right? The best thing you can do, Ellen White says that any married woman who takes the flattery of another man who is not her husband is committing adultery.
mercy.
And so if somebody comes and say, you look nice, thank you, that's it. They don't need to tell you how your curves look, how whatever, because all of that is breaking down the wall to get into your privacy. And so adultery doesn't start when you commit the act. That's not where it starts. It starts when you start seeking information, when you go out there looking at things you're not supposed to, books, taking in comments from other people who are not your spouse, and all of that. Even females get to your husband by befriending you. Yeah. They even go shopping with you and see you buying certain things and you say, oh, that's what your husband like? They're informing themselves.
Oh, mercy.
And you'd be unaware. I mean, I remember doing Bible study with a lady who was sharing with us how her affair actually started. And she said she was just simply sharing with her sister about things that she was disgruntled with. And her sister went to work feeling burdened because this is her sister who she thinks is so beautiful. And she was sharing with her co-worker who was a male. And they end up going to a party and the co-worker was just meeting her needs and she couldn't understand how. It was just so calculated. And so you have to understand that protecting the privacy of your home is not something that just happens. It's something you have to be very deliberate about. Your engagement, and as a couple, you set principles. One of the principles we have, the minute somebody like any of us, we share it with each other.
Yes.
And you provide a protective edge for it. Things like not having a little sister in the home, you know, or adopting this young lady who is your family friend. You know, you have to guard against the wiles of the devil because sexuality is something that needs to be protected at all costs, because when it gets its way in and break down the marriage, it's devastating.
Intense.
Very intense discussion. The matter of sex, though, is so delicate. And I love the idea of protecting your home and putting your guards up. But again, Kimberly's question, where do you go to get answers? Like, if you really have concerns and you may not, you really need somebody to talk to, like really gritty talk to, where do you go? Like, who do you talk to?
Shanique, I really think there is no set answer. I think you really need prayer before you actually approach, because it is true. There are persons you may talk to with all good intentions that may have ulterior motives. It may be a case that you actually go on the internet searching just because you really want to try this new thing with your husband, but instead the devil just throw up 1,000,001 videos and things where you're just really not interested in. So you really have to just do prayer. I can also say, I'm not going to tell you this must work for you, but at times there are older couples in the church that are not afraid to share. There are some that they put on this facade that you just know, say, really them not have nothing to tell you.
It's true.
But there are persons, and so you can pray and ask the Lord to identify that person. I can also tell you that Songs of Solomon have a lot of lyrics in there that if you really try your best to read, if you're great with literature, you will understand that there is a bit of word in there that you can find and use and give a go with that can also maintain your relationship. At the base of it is just prayer. Pray about it, and he will point you to the person you need to
And
talk
that is
to.
true. And one of the things that I find happens, and it happens naturally, but I think as married people, it ought to be a little bit more deliberate. You find that naturally, married people keep a lot of company with other married people. And I think if you're going to get to the place where you're going to be sharing, and even in your sharing, you can be very guarded, because you don't have to say this is what happens. But as married people, we can talk and you say, oh, hypothetically, if this happens, what would you do or whatever. It is one of the safer spaces. You are helping each other to build, and Roxanne said, a marriage needs community. And the better the marriage is around you are surviving, is the greater the chance of your marriage surviving. So if as married women we can sit and talk, and sometimes the experience level is different because you've been married all of you have been married longer than me, and so there are different things that we can get from each other and share. But you're right, prayer is the way to go, and God's ideal, and I'm going back to God's ideal, is that the home, the parental home, should be the place, Because while the Bible says you leave mother and father and cleave, mother and father is your reference point. And if you're coming out of an environment where you saw a good, healthy marriage, and your parents were open and they gave you a lot of good counsel and advice, then that is always one of the safest places to go back to. Because personally, I feel very comfortable to go back to my mother and say, Mommy, this happened. What should I do? Or if this doesn't happen, where do I go? Or which book would you recommend? Because even the books, we have to be careful. There are those books that are very, very outlandish, and you can see that the devil is written all over them. So we have to be careful, even we're looking for literature and even other things to enhance our sexual lives as married Christian people. We have to make sure we're walking along a path that God would have us walk, to talk to our Christian counselors, to read the books written by our Christian married people, to get that kind of God bound up counsel and advice. Because if the devil gets a big toe in a man, it just ripples out into disaster.
And Shanique, what I have discovered too, even if you're an acrobat or not, if you're not emotionally connecting,
nothing
the sexuality in the marriage won't be good. And that is why research has shown that Christians have the best sexual life, because when you're bonding spiritually and emotionally, there's such a build-up that occurs that it takes very little effort to land where you want to land. I am telling you. So sometimes we really have to seek out too. What is the problem? Is it that you're too busy for each other? Is it that you're not attracted to each other as you used to? Is it that you're not into each other's life?
You're not spending quality
time together. Because I'm telling you, you're not going to have a good sex life if you don't find yourself admiring your husband or your wife. Just looking and say, boy, this lady is just something. And when you find yourself admiring each other, just thinking of each other, it prepares you, for takeoff. But if you don't have that, no matter how much book you read and, all of that, you're just going to be on the plane. So sometime before you get to the gymnastic behavior, you need to find out what is it why we're not connecting. That's that.
Because it is about connecting. And if we are not connected to God first, and then connecting with each other, we cannot achieve what God has in his mind for us when he created sex. Because he knows exactly what we're supposed to be experiencing now. It was his design. So whenever we go outside of what he would have us do, and the connectivity not working, and the wires get crossed and things get unplugged, then everything starts to malfunction. And sometimes the issues are not the physical issues, and I think sometimes we focus so much on the physical issues when it comes to sex. Sometimes the issues are not physical issues. The issues are really emotional. Maybe your husband not spending enough time to compliment you, so you don't feel emotionally satisfied. Maybe you are not spending enough time to be supportive to your husband in other things. And so when you meet in the bedroom now, it's like you're starting from scratch, and you're like, are we connecting? Like, what are we doing? Like, where is this going? And it just doesn't work.
And Shanique, unforgiveness can hinder sexual fulfillment, if you hold grudges against each other, because the truth is you can give yourself just physically. But if you have grievances in your heart and stuff, then, you're just not going to feel emotionally fulfilled. And that is why, as a young lady, it's okay for you to be a virgin, but you need to marry somebody who is not. It's such a myth.
Yes.
Because I have come across many wives who have not been sexually fulfilled, even though they went out of their way listening to the cliches that we have in Jamaica, that you need to marry somebody who is experienced. Because that person, if he's so inconsiderate, he's not even going to be concerned
about your
experience. And what I've come to understand, that a man really has to love you and care about you for you to even feel sexually fulfilled.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because if he doesn't care an iota about you, you will be a sex machine and you will not be fulfilled. So more than getting somebody that is experienced, you need to get somebody who really loves you and cares so much about you that they're going to ensure for your happiness. Other than that, he will be going to the moon and back and telling you about the excursions and you don't know what it's like.
Oh dear. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this very intense, very interesting conversation that we've had about sex. There is so much out there that really cuts against what God has in store for his people as it regards sex. But we want to leave you with the takeaway that sex was created by God. And done the way God would have had us do it, it can be such a fulfilling, awesome, wonderful experience. And I just want to encourage all the Phoebes out there, all the young ladies and our young men, to trust the Lord. If you leave your sex life, your love life in his hands, he will give you what will be the taste of heaven.
Amen.
Thanks for listening to The Purple Door. This podcast is made possible by the Women's Ministry Department of the Central Jamaica Conference for listeners like you. Visit them at centralja.org. Like The Purple Door on Facebook and Instagram and leave your comments and questions. And remember to subscribe so you never miss a show. Join us next week for another great discussion. Until then, be blessed.